Hey, Nerd Herd, Dynasty Nerds here, back again, talking AFC North, and we just got back from the FF Expo in Cannes, so we're going to talk a little bit of stories about that.
We'll talk a little bit about how I took notes on the West, and Rich did notes on the North, and then we did the North.
And we had trunk beers.
Yeah, trunk beers.
Ready, set, hut. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And it's just the two of us today because Garrett Price is out with the love of his life.
That's right. I forgot about that. I couldn't remember why he was missing today.
I just assumed he's with his wife.
I think he is. I think he's with
They're doing
his boo.
something. They went out of town. So they're having fun.
Yep.
Back-to-back weekend. So we're back after an eventful weekend at the FF Expo in Canton, Ohio. Shout out to Bob Long for throwing that together. It was another amazing trip.
Great times, man. Right?
Got to meet some new people. Got to have some trunk beers with Tim, Chris, Cooter Doodle, and Mike Hicks. That was highlight of the weekend.
That was like the that was amazing. It was probably my highlight as well. I think trunk beers is kind of underselling what we did there. All right.
It was in the back of a van, and we were getting wet.
No, dude. It was raining sideways, and we were not getting wet. It was starting to rain sideways.
There's pictures on my Twitter, and I show my water boots. Yeah, we were literally playing Twister with our legs all combined.
We were in a parking lot, and it was a river. The parking lot had turned into a river. We were in a van.
Down by the river. So it was a great time at the Expo.
Yep.
Such a good time that I forgot what we're recording this week.
It happens,
We were supposed to be doing AFC, NFC West.
Right.
I studied the North.
You did.
So today we're talking about the AFC North.
And I studied the West, so this is going to be fantastic.
So we were right on schedule here. If you didn't make it to the FF Expo, I definitely encourage everybody to go next year. It's such a good time. We were able to meet so many fans of the show.
Absolutely.
That was a great part. Many more analysts came out this year than had came out last year. Yeah. Some of the bigger names that you might call them, or I don't think they call themselves that, started to come out this year. Just to kind of come out and meet the fans, the JJ Zachariasons, Matt Harmon. Yep. We were able to meet those guys finally this year. So it was a tremendous time. It was good. Des Bryant was there.
Kind
of stole a little bit of our mojo. He went on right before us on the main stage.
Well, I mean, he's a charismatic guy. He's bigger. He's bigger than I thought he was going to be.
What do you mean? Like muscular wise?
Just height and stature. I mean, I knew he was like 6'3". It's just some people are just a little bit more. They have more of a presence at 6'3".
I mean, shout out to Des.
Yeah.
I mean, he was super personable there. I mean, he took the time to talk to every single person that he wanted to talk to.
Yeah.
I had nothing to say to him, so I didn't talk to him. But everybody else did.
He always had a crowd, so I also didn't corner him or anything like that. The only thing I could have said was, "Hey, man, you helped me win some championships. Thank you." I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like,
didn't help me win anything. So
right.
I don't think I ever had a Des Bryant share his entire career.
No,
I don't think I did.
Yeah, I rode that guy right to my three-peats. He was right in there.
Yeah, you should have.
Yeah.
You should have French kissed him.
He was right in the mix, man.
Come here, baby. you made me fulfill my dreams.
Yes.
Three-peat dynasties.
Helped me fulfill my dreams.
Had some good conversations, definitely on the Dynasty panel. Shout out to
the panel was really
Alcafaz.
good. Yeah, that Dynasty panel was good.
I thought it was the best panel we ever had.
Yeah.
Dynasty-wise.
Right.
We had a good crowd again. Izzy Alcafaz,
right.
Shane Manila, Scott Connor, Michael Bauer. Some really good takes, some good different viewpoints, like Scott, who's super smart, who does trades in 5. Him and Shane, they're giving their point for the way they play, and I play completely different. And then Izzy was like kind of in the middle of that as well. So
and it was I think it was a good kind of slice into the bread a little bit of kind of all the different layers of Dynasty, and why it kind of goes cyclical is because you don't have to necessarily win one single way, or it's probably best that you don't have everyone playing one single way, which was a point that was made on the panel, because it'll get stale and things will almost get locked up. You know what I mean? If everyone's trying to do the exact same kind of strategy. So yeah, I thought it was a really thought-provoking, interesting panel.
Yeah, you can't make trades when people say in the same way. And Scott made a really good point. He's like, I really appreciate that you and I play totally two different ways. And knowing that there is a path to play
both ways.
The game and still find a way for success. And that's why with other podcasts out there and other sites, it's good to intake all this information to find your own way through there and mix the two if you can. But there is many different ways to win in Dynasty, and that's what we really try to focus on here. It's going to give you our viewpoint and how put you in the best position to win. And we know for sure the way I play does work because I win championships every year, so I know it works. And Scott, I assume, wins championships as well, so he knows it works.
Right, exactly.
You win championships. You just said you three-peated with Dez. Yep. I mean, you don't meet many people that three-peat Dynasty championships. So overall, tremendous weekend. Got to go out to dinner with the Dynasty Nerds crew. Met a couple fans as well that came out all the way out from Baltimore.
Yeah, that was
taking
fun.
them out to dinner. Yeah. Our good friends Chris Fennell and Tim Turner were there as well, so we took them out to dinner. So that was a great dinner. They went to the parties. It was a fantastic weekend. So Expo next year, it gets bigger every year. I definitely encourage everybody to kind of plan ahead. August 9th to 11th or 12th next year in Canton.
It's always the weekend after the Hall of Fame game.
Yes, right? And this year is all at the Hall of Fame, which is great because the Hall of Fame is actually growing into their little city center right there.
The Hall of Fame village that they have going on there is really nice. I mean, now there's a few restaurants there. There's a Starbucks there. There's obviously the big dome bubble that we had the convention in. That's kind of back behind the Hall of Fame stadium field and all that kind of good stuff. So it's neat, man.
Yeah. It's going to be better next year too.
Yeah.
So that's thank God for that Starbucks because, I didn't think that out, man. After partying hard for 2 days and then had to wake up and go to an expo and talk on 2 different panels and talk to hundreds of people, I was like, dude, I need Starbucks. And that's where we're in. Bob Harris and JJ Zacharias were right in front of us.
Absolutely. Everyone
needs just us 4 in the Starbucks.
Everyone needs a little kick,
Yeah. He's like, hey, I'm JJ. I'm like, oh, I'm Rich. And I saw his name tag. I'm like, oh, JJ Zacharias. I know who you are.
Yeah.
He's like, who are you? You handsome son of a. Hey, I'm not Des Bryant. Don't French kiss me.
No French kissing Rich, please.
Let's talk about the AFC North. But before we do, I got to tell you about our friends at Underdog. Got to meet one of the head guys at Underdog this weekend as well, Andrew, which was a great time.
Yeah, shout out to Andrew, man. That was good to meet you.
Yeah, it was fantastic meeting Andrew out there. And Underdog, if you don't play Underdog, then you're not having as much fun as you possibly can playing fantasy football. It's that simple, man. You literally just go on there, you draft your teams, you don't touch them again. You get to have all the fun of drafting a team and not touching again, right? Enjoying the draft and then moving on with your life.
Maintenance. It's just the fun stuff,
Just the fun stuff.
Yep.
And have a chance to win. And usually, from my experience, Dynasty players put more time into fantasy football than anybody else. So it does give you somewhat of a slight edge. It could hurt you as well because then you just start drafting young people.
You don't want to go too far one direction.
So if you go to Underdog, you download their app right now. You have a chance to play still spots left in the Best Ball Mania where you put $25 in and you have a chance to win a $3 million first prize. They have many other big games like that for you to win, but you can also just play amongst your friends. You can play against 1 person, 3 person, 6 people. It does not matter. Underdog's going to give you the opportunity to play fantasy football for the year. Draft a team. It will set your lineup every single week for you. And then at the end of the year, either you win or you lose. But either way, you're guaranteed to have a great time. And right now, if you deposit at least $10, Underdog will deposit match you up to $100. And on top of that, we will give you a free membership to the Nerd Herd.
Ooh.
If you missed the exhibit, you can check out our site. We're showing you all the stuff that comes with the Nerd Herd. The Dynasty GM app is getting a big upgrade here coming soon. But you can remember that. You get the film room. And now that you're in season, the GM's really going to help you manage your Dynasty teams a ton. So if you've never tried it, this is a perfect time to try it. All you got to do is deposit $10 on Underdog. Use the promo code NERDS, and you'll get a free 1-year subscription to the Nerd Herd. That's going to get you to the film room, the Nerd Score, the tools, all that for free, essentially, for 1 year. So you're going to get through the whole Dynasty season and see how we can help you better your overall Dynasty experience. Check them out. Underdog, promo code NERDS.
Nice.
So AFC North, let's kick it off with, let me bring it up here, the Baltimore Ravens.
I'll go through the depth charts here.
Appreciate you.
Quarterback, Lamar Jackson, Tyler Huntley, and Josh Johnson, who's on his, I think, 32nd out of 32 teams possible. Running back, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and they signed Melvin Gordon as well. I think they got a couple other guys, Keaton Mitchell being an undrafted guy that had some speed. as well on the roster. Tight ends Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, who's kind of already injured, Charlie Kohler, and some guy, Travis Vokalekal something. Wide receivers, Odell Beckham, Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, Nelson Aguilar. I didn't even realize he was on this team. Laquan Treadwell, or playing in the league anymore. And obviously Zay Flowers, Tylan Wallace is on this team. James Prochet. Yep.
Let's start at the top. Lamar Jackson gets this big contract, comes into this year. A little bit more security now in the dynasty realm. We were never worried about security because it wasn't with the Baltimore Ravens. It would be somewhere else.
Totally.
He's been a prolific fantasy football quarterback over the years. The problem he's had is he hasn't been healthy. But we also saw, after his MVP year, we came out and threw all those touchdowns last year. I mean, when he came out last year, I remember saying to the guy, we somewhat worried about Lamar Jackson. He came out just smoking, right? He had 12 in those first 3 games. I think he had a total of 12 touchdowns. But after that, he only had over 20 points twice after week 3. We know he got hurt after those 9 games. So week 12, he ended up getting hurt and coming out for the rest of the year. And that's been a problem, over the last 2 years. We've seen that consistency where he hasn't been there for you for your Dynasty Fantasy Football playoffs,
and that's when you need them absolute most. I mean, difference makers obviously are fantastic throughout the season, but the worst thing you possibly do is kind of scold your way right through the regular season and then fizzle out right there at the playoffs when you need them the most. I mean, that's the biggest letdown, and really, it gets hard to kind of rely on a guy when it's happened. Is it 2 or 3 years now? It's 2
years in a row. It's like somebody that you're messaging and having Western Union letters sent to each other about how much you love each other, and you get to know them really well, and you really like them, and then it's time to show up to meet for that first date, and then they no call no show because they stubbed their toe or they pulled a hammy or a PCL.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, obviously, that's kind of one of the stories here with Lamar Jackson is not being there for the past couple seasons for the playoffs. But the other part is, this is a new offense.
Todd Monken comes in.
Tom Monken comes in. This is going to be I think the plan is to make this a much more traditional offense. We'll see. He has a history of kind of doing whatever works best for the players that he has. So, I think what we're going to see, no one really knows completely, right? But, you see all the Twitter clips, all this kind of stuff. People are making a big deal about him throwing a ball downfield to Odell Beckham in these mixed scrimmages and all that kind of stuff. And that's great. They completed the pass. I watched the clip. It looked great. It was a 40, 50-yard throw or whatever. Odell Beckham had to slow up and almost fall and stop to get that ball. It still wasn't a great pass.
He went to his knees.
Right,
to catch that ball.
Exactly. So, I mean, another 2 or 3 yards where he's leading him and Odell's still running. Instead, he's kind of, tripping and falling. And it's still a big play, but it's not what you really want out of your QB1. You want him to be able to lead that guy downfield, and that guy should still be running. So, it kind of goes to show that, maybe he's progressed a little bit, but I think you're still going to see some of these passes from Lamar. I think that's just ingrained in him. Like that is him at his essence, is a little bit of inconsistency with his passing. So hopefully they don't go too far to the traditional realm of NFL offenses, and they let him still run the ball. Yeah,
well, they said that when Todd Monken came in, Todd Monken said he plans to bring back Lamar Jackson's rushing a little bit there and open it up. And so far,
dial it back?
Dial it back a little bit, yeah. So, and some of the proof is in the pudding there, right? Like, they bring in OBJ, and they give him big-time money.
Sure.
$18 million pretty much guaranteed. They have a former first-round pick in Rashad Bateman, who they haven't had a chance to get healthy either. That should be healthy
just came
this
off
year.
pup.
Came off the pup.
Yep.
And they drafted Zay Flowers in the first round again this year. So they have 3 first-round wide receivers on their roster to go along with their all-pro tight end and Mark Andrews.
Absolutely.
So they are putting the weapons around him to succeed in the passing game. So we would see that for him, where he's usually averaging about over 60 yards per game, this would probably be a year where he's going to rush for under 50 yards per game on average. Better chance that Justin Fields becomes the new high-end rushing quarterback. So can he translate that into pass and touchdowns for Lamar Jackson? Because Todd Monken looks like he is going to kind of scale that back a little bit and open up him in the passing game. And that's for all weapons, even a guy like J.K. Dobbins, where J.K. Dobbins has only caught less than 25 balls, I think, so far he's been in the league. We saw at Ohio State that he could catch footballs. But with Todd Monken, when everywhere he goes, the running back does get an uptick in the pass catching ability. Even for where he had his stint here in Cleveland. Nick Chubb had the highest average per receptions per game. It was at like 3.1, I believe, for the rest of his career, where he's under 3.
Right.
So it is an uptick for J.K. Dobbins as well. You're right. Does it come down to Lamar Jackson? Can he adapt and be a passer in the NFL?
Yeah, and then that's the biggest question. Because if it is, I think it's great for some of those other pieces out there. I think regardless, he's got a really good kind of rapport with Mark Andrews, so I'm not worried about him kind of either way.
Not at all.
But getting guys, I mean, now they've got 3 pretty good weapons there in the passing game. You named them. Obviously Odell, Zay, and if Bateman's fully healthy, those are 3 really good options. Are they going to be fantasy relevant though? You know what I mean? Like that's great. That's great for the Baltimore Ravens that they've got these pieces and they're able to spread teams out. Is he able to get the ball to him? Is my going to be my biggest question. And if he isn't, are they willing to stick with that long term, or is it this isn't working out? We got to pivot. Lamar, you're going to be running the ball a lot more than we had hoped at the beginning of the season. And if that's the case, are we now pigeonholing him? This is what he's going to be. Are we seeing him a little bit more of a short-term asset because we're afraid that he's already, 2 years in a row he's been injured, and now do we kind of see him as a guy that's a couple big injuries away from being out of the league? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that for him, they had to protect their investment,
right?
And we know Mark Andrews is the number one option in this offense, and there's never been more weapons around Mark Andrews, so it's easy for us to say that. We don't know for sure, but you are talking about Mark Andrews last year, led the team in targets with 113, led the team in catches with 73, led the team in yards at 847, and touchdowns in 5. But he also got beat up as well. I mean, remember, so Mark Andrews over the last 7 years is the only person to supplant Travis Kelce as the number 1 overall fantasy tight end.
Yeah.
Overall. It was Mark Andrews a couple of years ago.
I was going to say, it was two years ago, right?
Yeah. And then last year, for the beginning of the season, for the first third of the season, he was doing really well. He had 455 yards. He was keeping pace with Travis Kelce, and then he got a couple of injuries. I think he had what happened to him? The shoulder and knees. And after that, those last 10 games that he played, he only had 465 yards. So those injuries kind of helped him. Obviously, Lamar coming out wasn't the best, but Andrews actually, not a lot, but averages slightly more points, about 0.5 more points, somewhere around there, points per game more without Lamar Jackson than Lamar Jackson.
Right.
But nothing crazy, like 13 to 12 and a half, somewhere around there.
I feel like he's one of those guys that's pretty, you can rely on him regardless, obviously.
He's safe. Right. So then it comes down to the receiving game. And for me, in my best ball leagues, in my underdog leagues and whatnot, I've been grabbing a lot of shares of OBJ because if they're going to open up this passing game, they're going to need somebody to throw to. They're going to need to throw to the number 1. Rashad Bateman's coming in, still kind of trying to get his feet beneath him and becoming an NFL receiver. Zay Jones, a rookie receiver.
Yep.
Destroying camp right now.
Yeah,
looking really good, but still a rookie.
We've seen plenty of guys flash in camp when it's not live. You know what I mean? And then the guy, obviously, Odell Beckham is a seasoned pro. He knows exactly what to do.
So you have to follow the money there, and it's going to be OBJ is probably the number 1 guy. A guy who as well looked really good. I know he hasn't played in a year, but when he was with the Rams, he looked good with the Rams. He was coming out there. He played 11 games with the Rams. He averaged 4.2 catches for 52 yards and over a half a touchdown there. He was averaging over 13 points per game, right on an average per game basis. Even in the Super Bowl, he looked good until he got hurt. So he should be a wide receiver too. If you're looking for a good value at as a championship caliber team and want to get wide receiver 2 numbers and probably mid-range to the high end, guys are going to average probably, I think his numbers on average, if you put him into last year, he's right around that DK Metcalf range, right around there. So if you're comfortable with DK, that's what you're going to get.
I'm gonna pull up our app right now and see how much exposure I have. I know I have him on at least 2 teams. I can't remember if it's 2 or 3.
I've got 4, and I made a move for him where I gave up something in a third, a player and a third to get OBJ, and I felt really comfortable about that as well. So I think Odell Beckham falls into a great spot to be fantasy relevant this year. And when you're chasing chips, that's all you're really worried about. So he'll come in, he'll be the number one receiver. Hopefully he can stay healthy, keep that ACL intact, and give you wide receiver 2 numbers. And you probably can get him for a second-round pick.
I think I thought I had him in. I thought I had him in 2 leagues. I guess I only have him in 1. But that's my win league, my win now league. You know what I mean? It's one of those ones that I almost treat it as a redraft league. It's our Nerds Calculator league. We got no taxi squad, and all that kind of stuff. So
if you can't get a second now for OBJ, all you have to do is just wait. Yeah. Wait till week 4. A receiver's gonna go down. OBJ should hopefully put up the numbers that you need to get there. And again, we're following the money here, right? Absolutely. 18 million. You're the number one. He's gonna go out there and produce. And we're gonna talk about. I know Dalvin Cook signed this week. I know Zeke Elliott signed this week. We'll talk about them after our break. After we do our FFPC, before we go into the final 2 teams, we'll do a quick.
Yeah, we have to have a conversation. Yeah, because we already did those divisions.
So Ravens overall. And then J.K. Dobbins coming back from the ACL. Something that went out there and played early. Knee wasn't feeling right. He missed the first 2 weeks because he didn't really look right. Played a little bit. Hey, my knee's not good. I need to come back here and make sure that I'm healthy. Gets his knees cleaned up, and then he comes back. And I mentioned earlier that Todd Monken does want to get him more involved in the passing game. And where he has not caught a ton of footballs in the NFL, he did catch 18 as a rookie. And then when he was at Ohio State, he caught 71 footballs. So he's very capable.
He definitely showed, in his past that he can do it. It just hasn't been a thing that's been featured yet.
Even the Bengals playoff game,
right.
We came in there. He had 4 catches for 43 yards. If you can add, if he's going to be the guy, he's going to come in there and get those 13, 14, 15 carries per game, and then add about 3 catch like that. Just take the Nick Chubb role right there.
Sure.
3.1 catches per game. And on top of that, you're talking about low-end running back 1 right there if he can stay healthy. And on top of that, when he came back last year, at the end of the year, he came out and averaged over 6 yards per carry. So Dobbins came back in his final 5 games, and if you count the playoff game as well, Dobbins had a total of 505 yards and 2 touchdowns on the 75 touches, averaged 6.56 yards per carry. So this is something we've been talking about on this show now for years.
And that was him hobbling. You know what I mean?
This was after him coming back.
Okay, my bad.
This is the final part of the game.
Gotcha.
When he was actually fully healthy, he was averaging at 6.56 yards per carry. So something we've talked up on this show a ton. He's been one of my biggest buys now for 2 years. Contract year. He's got to come out and show that he's the guy this year.
And he's in camp, right? He finally reported this week.
Today.
Right? Yep.
He got activated off the pup today.
Yep.
Or was it yesterday?
It was today or yesterday. It was this week for sure.
So he worked in there.
So, obviously he's going to get in. I think Gus Edwards right now is still banged up, right?
Yeah, he's not even practicing.
Yeah, so, Justice Hill, I think, got the starts this past season or this past week in the preseason game. So it'll be nice to get Dobbins in, acclimated. I feel like, if you waited until now to make your move for him, it might have already been a little bit too late. Like, the buying window might be closing now that we're actually seeing him in camp and everything like that. So that, hopefully you took our advice and kind of went out and got him based off the skill and the talent alone.
What about today? A guy who hasn't done a ton. You're a contender.
Yeah.
You have 2 good backs, right? You have James Conner and you got Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
2 good backs, right?
Yeah, sure.
You're a contender. You feel really good about your team. There's a team that's kind of out of it. Hey, I'll take a first for J.K. Dobbins. Would you pay the first?
Yeah. For Dobbins? Yeah.
He wants a first and a third. Would you pay a first and a third?
Yeah, because I don't care about a third.
I don't care about a third either.
Yeah.
He wants a first and a second. You're a contender, so you feel pretty good about this. Your depth behind them is Raheem Mostert and, let's say...
Raheem Mostert, I feel good about 3 or 4 games.
Yeah. So your roster is like, you're good those first 2 running backs, but not too strong.
Yeah.
Would you give a first and second for J.K. Dobbins?
Yeah, win now, I would.
I think I would too.
And the reasoning is... we always want to say sell these guys, before they get to their second contract. He hasn't even gotten off the ground yet. I feel like this is one of those rare guys that's going to get a second contract and still be good for a 3 or 4 year period. You know what I mean? Or at least a 2 or 3 year window. And if I'm giving up a first and a second to get a guy that is coming in, like approaching his prime and I'm going to get 2 or 3 good years out of that, that's worth it to me. especially on a win now team where you're in a championship window. That's how you kind of capitalize. That's how you get yourself over the hump and over the hill. If you're, going from a contender that you're kind of wishy-washy about, those are the kind of moves that can get you all the way over the hump and into that championship.
His other surgery, remember, was just a cleanup. It wasn't anything crazy, just to feel 100%. And he's only like 23 years old still.
Yeah, he's young.
So he's still really young. So I feel like, for me, that's an investment that I would make that if I need the running back help. I'm very fickle when it comes to the running backs. I won't go out there just to buy them in abundance. Like Izzy offered me a guy who I love, Devon Achane.
Yeah.
He offered me, hey, I'll give you Devon Achane. He was in the clock for first. And I was like, I do love Achane. And he's like, I don't understand why you declined that trade, because you were just telling me how much you love Achane and how much you hate your first and how you have no problem going with your first if you're a contender. I was like, yes, but I'm also good at running back.
Yeah, so you don't want to just burn picks for no reason.
I'll buy a receiver and burn that, like a decent receiver, if I can get them, always. Like I accept those trades because I'll take the depth. When it comes to running back, if I'm good, I am not giving up my first round picks for running backs if I don't need them.
Yeah, you don't want to just pad for no reason. I mean, if you have if you have your starters and you have a really good backup, sometimes that's enough to feel good at the position. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes, depending on what the backup is or who that person in your starting lineup is, you might need a fourth one. But once you're getting past that, you're really kind of just burning through things for no reason.
What's great about Dobbins is he's young enough where if you pay that first and second and he does pan out to be a low-end running back 1 to mid-range running back 2, you can recoup that first and second probably in 2 years and get 2 years of value out of it and get the exact same return.
Yeah.
And if you're a championship team, you're actually be upgrading your return because you went from 112, then the future anywhere from wherever that may be. I'm sure it'd be a contender from 1.6 to 112. Odds are, even if it was 111, you upgraded into that slot. So let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals, man.
All right, man. The Cincinnati Bengals. Let me get their depth chart out here. And the quarterback, obviously Joe Burrow, Trevor Siemian, Jake Browning, who cares? The only one that matters, I already said. Running back, Joe Mixon, Travion Williams, Chase Brown is the rookie.
Travion Henderson.
What did I say?
Williams.
No, it's Travion Williams.
Okay, I wrote it down wrong.
That's all right. Chase Brown, Chris Evans. I'm like, what? Way to throw me off.
I wrote down Joe Mixon as Joe Mixon too, so don't worry about me.
You type with your nose. Everyone knows. Tight end, Irv Smith, Drew Sample, Mitchell Wilcox, Devin Asiasi. Who knows?
Former second-round pick, Devin Asiasi?
I think he was a third.
No, he's a second-round pick. Remember the Patriots took 2 second-round picks. Devin Asiasi and then the other guy.
I think they were both thirds.
Well,
we'll see. Because I'll look it up when I'm done.
Okay.
Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Trenton Irwin, Andrea Isovayas or whatever, Charlie Jones, the other rookie.
Yep. Big, tall, fast guy.
Yeah, Stanley Morgan. No one else will really.
You can stop now.
Yeah, no one else will back there.
Except
my boy Trent Taylor is still on the team.
He's still there.
Yeah.
From San Francisco. He
Yeah.
hasn't left. Maybe we'll make it this year.
This is his year.
You could argue this is the best receiving core in the NFL with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd.
It's pretty good. And Charlie, don't forget Charlie Jones.
And Charlie Jones. You got the Philadelphia Eagles with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and of course you have Miami with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
But this is a really good receiving core. So
it really is. It
puts Joe Burrow, who's also a fantastic quarterback, into a great spot. On a points per game basis, you're talking about quarterback 4 overall last year. This is a team that upgraded the offensive line. It's kind of got a little bit better last year. And they bring a guy like Orlando Brown in this offseason to play less tackle. They take their left tackle, move him to the right side. So this is a really good spot for the Bengals, who are legit Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that all depends and hinges on Joe Burrow being healthy and that calf issue not being a real issue. But with him in the lineup, everything's smooth sailing, and he's going to – I mean, there's no reason to think that they can't get back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't necessarily dwell on this. Joe Burrow, high-end startup super flex quarterback, 1 QB quarterback.
Clearly.
Jamar Chase, a top 2 overall pick, top 3 overall pick in a dynasty startup. T. Higgins, a fantastic receiver who has not been a wide receiver 1 yet, but who has put up high-end wide receiver 2 numbers. Matt, do you think T. Higgins stays in Cincinnati? We know that Mike Brown is not an exorbitantly wealthy cash owner.
Right.
Can he afford to pay Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins?
That's going to be the rub, right? I mean, right now they're sitting with a ton of cap space, so theoretically, yes. But like you said, an organization that maybe isn't as cash, how would you say, not poor,
rich.
There we go, rich, as some other ones. That is going to be that's going to be tricky because obviously, all the bonus money has to go in an escrow. So I mean, there is money that
guaranteed money has to go in escrow.
That's what I mean, guarantees.
Yeah, so if you give Joe Burrow a 7-year, $350 million contract with $250 million guaranteed, Mike Brown's have a $250 million in escrow the day that Joe Burrow signs that contract.
Right.
So
which makes other contracts very tricky.
And same thing with, like, if you franchise a player and it's all guaranteed, that goes right into escrow. Mm-hmm. So Jamar Chase, something like that. Do they figure out a way to extend T. Higgins, or do they trade him? Do they franchise tag him and trade him?
It's a really great question. I have no clue as to the actual finances of, like, theoretically they
just your guess. Yeah, I'm not asking. Like, what do you think happens there? Do you think? Yeah. Do you think they're a little bit? Do you think Joe Burrow could come to a decision? Because I do think Joe Cool is the kind of guy who say, "Hey, I'll work my contract to keep my guys. Like these two guys here. I'm trying to win Super Bowls."
I mean, I think you, as a quarterback in the NFL, get used to a certain level of wide receivers out there, and you don't necessarily want to downgrade, especially when you've gotten so close to the peak. So I do think he is the type of guy that will probably do that. I don't know that for sure, so I don't want to say outright that T. Higgins is going to be there based off of that. But if you're Cincinnati, I find it very hard to believe that they're going to let that guy go. He is that good.
He's pretty damn good.
And I think if you look at the way that they drafted Charlie Jones this year, I think that's a 1-for-1 replacement for Boyd. And Boyd's he's a guy that's starting to creep up the list here. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's already the 7th highest cap number on the team.
This is last year, though.
It's his last year, and he's counting about $10 million against the cap. So that one to me feels very obvious. Like he's out
100%. Charlie, he's out.
Yeah, and you kind of allocate money that you would have given to Boyd, and you give whatever that is to T. Higgins plus whatever you need to do to keep him there. So it's not such a big hit because you're going from a guy that's making $10 million against the cap, and probably a pretty decent amount of salary as well. Let me check on that. I don't have the contract up, but he's making his base salary right now is over $8 million.
That's pretty damn good.
So that's a pretty good chunk that you're getting back when you let a guy like Boyd go and replace him with Charlie Jones.
And they don't want to pay Jonathan Taylor,
a late round pick.
It's insane. So not them specifically, but NFL teams. So what do you feel about like Tyler Boyd in Dynasty? Because he's a wayside player, right? Like he's a bottom of the barrel guy on your roster. You're never starting him. If you do, you're not a contender. Does that make Tyler Boyd a sneaky buy? Does Tyler Boyd fall in that category where all of a sudden he's signing somewhere next year and he's getting like $13 million a year, with 20 of it guaranteed on a team somewhere, and he slides in as a number 2, say somewhere along the lines of like a guy like Cooper Kupp or offsetting like a guy like Marquise Brown.
I mean, I think obviously, I think that's the best case scenario for him. He's 28 years old. He'll be 29 this year, so he's
that old already.
He's not a spring chicken. So he's
Tyler Boyd has come and gone that quick.
Yeah. So right. I don't know that he's like.
Never mind. I take back all that. I swear I thought Tyler Boyd. I feel like we were talking about Tyler Boyd's rookie profile like just a couple of years ago.
He's 7 years in the league, man.
Boy, time flies when you're talking Dynasty.
It really does.
Oh my goodness!
So boy, for a guy that like never jumped off the page and was
never mind. I would not pay
anything more than wide receiver 3. I don't think I could pay much for him.
So let's talk about somebody who I talked about on the show last week that I thought up until he got this redone deal, and I know he's in court right now. And if you follow Drew Davenport, who's a lawyer, shout out to Drew Davenport on Twitter, he's kind of following his case pretty closely with Mixon.
He was there this weekend. Right?
He was there, yeah. Yeah, with football guys. Mm-hmm. Real good dude, Drew is. And he's been posting on Twitter, following us really closely. He's actually a great follow for any kind of legal things going on. He gets real depth in detail because he is a lawyer. Fantastic follow for the football guys.
He'll put those threads together.
Yeah, he actually gets the court documents and reads them. So Joe Mixon, you look at Joe Mixon, he's in a fantastic position. He was running back 10 overall last year. I think it was like running back 4 the year before that. And right now, he's in position. You take Samaje Perine out of the picture, he's in position to even do better this year when it comes to his overall stats. And that's coming after last year. Last year, this is somebody who had a big uptick in his he set career highs in targets with 75, receptions he had 60, and receiving yards 441. And remember, they brought Samaje Perine a lot in third down. So that's a big uptick for him where Joe Mixon should see about 100 targets this year, maybe probably even plus 100 plus targets this year, come away catching anywhere from 75, 80 footballs, which will be his bread and butter because all his metrics on his rushing numbers have gone down pretty drastically. They're actually pretty abysmal if you look at them. And that's like he led the league last year in like the least amount of stacked boxes. He led the league in it and still he averaged 3.9 yards per carry when they weren't stacking the box, which makes sense. This is a team you're not going to stack the box against. But at the same time, just like it did for Perine, that should open a lot of stuff for Mixon in the flat. And I would still predict that the Bengals would understand, hey, Joe Mixon's a very quality runner, but we're only going to get about 3.5 to 4 yards per carry. But he's very good in the passing game here. And that's a really good chance to move this sticks. Do you think Joe Mixon finishes running back one again this year because of his pass catching ability?
I mean, I think that's the only way he gets there, right? I mean, you're looking at his rushing totals, and they're going kind of down, right? I mean, he had 1,200 in 2021. He was obviously injured in 2020 and only got 400, but I think he's hit his peak, and last year he's down at 814. So I think if he's going to get there, it's going to be through the receiving game, and that's been spiking. So it what you just said really paints a picture, I think, of the way they see him and the way that they want to use him. My question is, are they going to try to work in one of these other guys to kind of take some of the load off of him? The Chase Browns, the rookie who has some good explosion, or the Travion Williams, who's also been on the team for a while and was a faster guy coming out.
Yeah, I think they ride Mixon out for one last year.
Okay.
I think he's going to be the focal point of this offense. He knows Chase Brown's a rookie, so I don't trust Chase Brown on third down to pass protect anything whatsoever. So that's my own personal feeling. I don't think they're going to use him there. They're not going to use him on the goal line. It's going to be Joe Mixon's job as well. So for me, I think Joe Mixon is going to be the product of targets and opportunity. And finishes a running back one.
Right. If that's the case, then I think it's pretty easy to say or assume that he'll be a running back.
And people will argue like, well, Rich, he scored 25% of his total points last year in that one big game where he had like 50 points. And if you take those out, he was like running back like 15, 16. We're still high on running back too.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine. But I also predict him to offset that by the Perine loss and uptick in the targets and the opportunities overall. They're at the end of the year because they really leaned on him a little bit, Perine a little bit more to the end of the year. So I would still pay a first for Mixon if I was a contender. Hoping he could latch on somewhere next year. He's still only 26 years old. He's not an old running back or 27 years old.
I was going to say, I think he's 27.
Yeah, he's 27 now, I think. He's still not an old running back. He should get opportunities somewhere next year. So paying a first for a 2-year window for a guy like Mixon, I'd be okay with.
Yeah, not bad.
All right. Before going to our next team, which is my favorite team in the world, let me tell you about our friends over at FFPC. FFPC is an absolutely fantastic place to go play Dynasty fantasy football. This is a company that launched in 2010, and they are the home to the largest high-stake Dynasty League community in all of fantasy football. If you feel like you've been playing this game for a while and you want to take your game to another level when it comes to a monetary status, there's not a better site out there in the world than FFPC. If you have trouble finding reliable Dynasty leagues, you don't know enough people or enough people don't want to play in a little bit higher stakes leagues that you want, FFPC is the place to go. I
got a great story. I'm going to interrupt you right in the middle of your take here. There's a guy that approached me at the Expo. We were talking it was a fan. We were chit-chatting for a little while, and he's like, I'm new to Dynasty. He's like, I've been almost exclusively a redraft guy forever. He's like, but I found your guys' podcast. I'm a big fan. And he's like, me and my son got in a league, together, a Dynasty league. He's like, we're enjoying it. It's great. He's like, but how do I get involved in other leagues? And we were like, I was like, I immediately sent. I was like FFPC. I was like, it's great. It's great for all this kind of stuff. Exactly what you need, and it's a one-stop shop for one of these things where you can just go out, find a league. And, it's all backed by FFPC. They're the kind of the commissioners. They take care of it. It's not like you're not just picking a random guy out of the crowd to be your commissioner that you don't know or anything like that. So they take care of you. And he was very thankful that I pointed him in that direction. But I think a testament to them that was the first thing that popped in my brain when this guy asked me.
Yeah, 100%. And you can play redraft too. They have like redraft leagues there as well. This is a place where a Dynasty League is never folded in 13 years. Now, one league's folded because, like Matt said, they commission the leagues.
Yep.
They take care of those. And if you use the promo code NERDS right now, you're going to get $25 off any entry for new members. So use that promo code NERDS. Check them out. You're never in enough Dynasty Leagues. It's why the Nerd Herd's so special and why we build the Dynasty Gym in the first place, to give you the opportunity to play in more leagues. And FFPC is linked to the Dynasty Gym, so it automatically does upload your teams there. So check them out, myffpc.com. Use the promo code NERDS. So, Matt, before we go here into the Cleveland Browns, let's just hit on real quick. We said we mentioned in the beginning of the show, Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott. Let's start with the lower rung of the ladder, Zeke Elliott.
Yeah.
Goes to New England Patriots, not for a lot of money. Ramondre Stevenson owners might let out a slight gasp, but I think this actually kind of helps Stevenson a little bit because, one, we knew Stevenson wasn't going to get every carry.
Yeah.
And Stevenson doesn't really strive like at the goal line. He's not a huge in between the tackles runner, but he dominates in the passing game. And we know how Bill likes to use those running backs. I look at this personally as just like Ramondre is still the guy, and Zeke's just kind of like a spell guy.
I mean, I don't think Zeke has enough juice in his legs to be anything more than that at this point. I think he kind of showed that last year. So I would expect him to be a guy that pounds the ball, into the end zone and short yardage, and gets first downs and moves the chains. And like you said, Ramondre is going to be the guy that's kind of in between the 20s and in the passing game. I think that's enough to sustain him and kind of keep him afloat. It's obviously, I think it's got to lower everyone's expectations slightly. I mean, it's still a quality running back coming on the team that's going to take away some carries. So I don't want to say it's nothing, but I don't think the sky isn't falling for Ramondre Stevenson at this point.
So his opportunity to be a running back one.
I think he can get there
in this league. It's just the touchdowns could hurt him a little bit, and his touchdowns could help Zeke a little bit. So Zeke's not dead as well in fantasy, but you would, at this point, hope he could be a running back too?
Zeke?
Yeah.
I would be very happy if he was a running back too.
I would too.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about a bigger
absolutely.
damning here. Dalvin Cook signs with the New York Jets.
Yeah.
And all Breece Hall owners are letting out a collective sigh of despair. There you pretty much just mimicked to a T.
Yep.
So with Dalvin Cook goes there, he signs for $8.3 million.
Not chump change, especially this point in the season. Like this is typically when bottom basement deals are happening, not $8 million deals.
So this tells me that. So for two things here. One, when Aaron Rodgers signed that team with the Jets, they were immediately all in. This is a Super Bowl contending team.
Yep.
And then Aaron Rodgers lowers his cap number to help out the Jets.
Looky.
Aaron Rodgers played in the same division as the Minnesota Vikings, which would be the NFC North.
Yeah.
You think Aaron Rodgers had some say in getting some Dalvin Cook in there?
I think these are pretty easy dots to connect. Yes. That once you've seen a guy for 8 or 9 years, twice a year, you know that he's special. You know he can catch the ball. You know he can do the things that you want him to do.
And we knew Breece was going to be worked back in this offense. So we know historically, unless you're a complete outlier like Adrian Peterson, the year after you tear your ACL, your fantasy numbers go down.
Yeah.
And usually it's not a slight dip. It's usually a pretty significant dip in your overall value. Now, Breece Hall is still super young, still super valuable. And the plan here is to probably, really slowly work Breece Hall back in here.
Listen, the worst thing you'd want to do is bring in an old quarterback, have a fantastic running back that was injured last year and not ready to play. And for the start of the season, that he's not ready till week 9, 10. That's when he's starting to hit his stride. You can't waste that time with Aaron Rodgers at the helm.
Definitely AFC.
in the AFC, you'll be buried, you'll be done, you'll have wasted an entire year of Aaron Rodgers' career that he doesn't have a lot of left. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So I think the signing right now is great for the Jets. I think it's, Dalvin Cook is going to have very good early season sort of value, and he's going to be able to carry some teams through the first 9-10 weeks of the season. I think it's going to get a little dicey. We were talking about that before the show. Come playoff time, when you need them, it might get a little dicey. It might be one of those things where Breece Hall starts to kind of work his way back towards the end of the season. Who knows? I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I know you do somewhere. We haven't seen it in so long that it might be retired. But no one at this point knows what the end of the season is going to look like. But I'm at this point in the year, Dalvin Cook is going to be a play early. And I think he's going to be able to really help some teams out until Breece Hall kind of gets his legs underneath him.
For the most of your regular fantasy football season, it's going to pretty much be Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
And it's going to get dicey towards the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, it stinks, but, this is if you have Dalvin Cook, you're riding him early, plan accordingly, I think, towards the end of the season. Make sure you're making moves to kind of pad that. This kind of goes perfectly back to my point earlier. Like, hey, if you got 2 or 3 guys, sometimes you're okay with 2 or 3 guys. Sometimes you're not.
Sometimes you're not.
If Dalvin Cook is one of those 3 guys, you're not. You need to go out and get a 4th guy to feel good about your depth at the running back position.
And if you have Breece, so you're going to see, I've seen people on Twitter go, this is the window for Breece Hall. Do not sell Breece Hall. There is no window here to sell. He's a 22-year-old.
I'll take him if you're selling.
He'll still have 2 years left after this year on his deal, and he'll still have the franchise tag if they can't work out a long-term deal, which they will. So you have 3 years of Breece Hall on a very good team going forward. If there's any window to buy here at all,
sure,
you buy. And I would pay – there's not many running backs I would say this about. Let me start there. There's not many, Matt.
Yeah.
I would pay 2 first for Breece Hall today.
I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I'd like to, but he's smooth as silk. He's like the Matt Forte of this age range. So that dude, as long as the knee gets right, which we have no reason to think it won't. He came off PUP today, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
The day that Dalvin Cook gets signed, there he is. Look, oh no, my knee's feeling better.
Look at me. How many jumping jacks you want?
Exactly. He's just going to be a difference maker for years to come in the passing game, and he's so smooth in the running game that he can do it. He can kill you both ways. So he's going to be a very rare asset to have in a couple of years. Obviously this year is going to be a little bit of a setback year for him. And if you can get great value on him, go out and do it. This is the time to do it.
I'd have no problem right now throwing out an offer for 2 first, or even if I had, a younger running back that I'm not.
What if you had a Devon A-Chain?
I would get Devon A-Chain and a first.
And a first.
Yeah, 100% for Breece Hall. Yeah, 100%. And
So
I love Devon A-Chain.
Yeah.
And Devon A-Chain was a huge winner with Zeke and Dalvin Cook. The biggest worry about A-Chain was if Dalvin Cook signed there.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
now this is a massive win. It's a double win where A-Chain's looked really good in camp so far, and the team has really been talking him up across the board. And then Dalvin Cook doesn't sign there.
Yeah.
Feel pretty good about having my A-Chain as my 1-4 throughout the whole process now.
Yeah, and obviously there's going to be questions about his size. I think he's already bulked up a little bit. We don't need to make this a Devon A-Chain segment, but
I like his ability running between the tackles too. I said that when it broke down, but we won't
no
get in
doubt.
there. We have bold predictions to talk about Devon A-Chain, so trust me, I'll get one in there because I love him. Yeah, him and Dalton Kincaid. I made sure at the Expo to mention Dalton Kincaid on both panels, by the way, and call him my husband material or future husband on both panels.
I was there. I saw
Like Des Bryant was to my left, and I was talking about how I was going to marry Dalton Kincaid on a large microphone for the entire Canton, Ohio to hear.
Yeah.
So everybody knows.
Yeah,
He's mine.
he's your boo.
As Jared would say, mine, mine, mine.
Mine. He's all mine.
Can we move on to the greatest team in all of the NFL? Okay, not the greatest. My favorite team, and the team that I predict for 2023 to win the NFL Super Bowl.
Oh boy,
Cleveland Browns.
All right, Deshaun Watson at quarterback, Josh Dobbs, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who has actually looked pretty good.
Looked really good. He's going to start this Thursday.
I know.
It was just one preseason game, but he looked smooth.
He's looked good in 2.
And I felt bad because, when Izzy and Hurley came in, they came in a day early because those are like some of my best friends in this industry. So they came in early to hang out before the expo. And I took them downtown to go eat. And we're standing there, and Josh Dobbs rolls up with his girlfriend right next to us. Well, Josh Dobbs. And I was like, I'm not going to say anything, no, because I thought Dorian Thompson-Green looked so good, he might not be the backup soon.
I mean, I doubt that'll happen. I don't think that'll be a year one backup.
He looked good enough. You can't put him on the practice squad, probably.
No, I think he's going to be on the team. I don't know that he's going to be the number 2 guy.
Finish with the roster. I interchecked.
All right. Running back, Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford, Demetric Felton, who also has looked pretty good, and John Kelly Jr. At the tight end position, David Njoku, Jordan Akins, Harrison Bryant, and some guy I'm not going to get.
That's all you need to read.
Amari Cooper at wide receiver, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, Marquise Goodwin, Jakeem Grant, who's going to be mostly a special team guys. Anthony Schwartz and David Bell are fighting for roster spots. And
Schwartz won't make the team.
And Austin Watkins Jr., who has looked really good.
Austin Watkins, somebody who we talked about big time during his rookie year, who signed San Francisco, hurt his knee, got waived. He's looked really good in Browns camp so far.
I mean, he's for sure going to make the team over a guy like Anthony Schwartz and David Bell, who just don't distinguish themselves at all whatsoever.
He's out there making one-handed catch.
Yeah. Anthony Schwartz is lucky to hold on to the ball on a sweep.
So we'll start at the top here with Deshaun Watson. Finally coming back, we could say now, after 2 years, pretty much not playing the NFL here. Before all this went down, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
He was up there with, you could argue, Deshaun Watson. Or
you could argue Deshaun Watson was right up there with Deshaun Watson.
With Pat Mahomes. Like, he was that good.
Yeah.
And, he led the league in passing his final year. And from a fantasy aspect point of view, same thing. Throws for a ton of yards, very mobile, very athletic. Averages a decent amount of yards. He averages, even last year, coming back, he averaged 29.2 yards per game, which was eighth best amongst quarterbacks there. So he is he's a rushing quarterback that adds that overall fantasy football potential. Playing behind a terrific line with one of the best running backs in the NFL, and the receiving core is looking really good this year.
They're coming together. Yeah.
Amari Cooper, we don't need to sit here and talk about Amari Cooper going into 29-year-old into the league. He'll be 29
years in the league. Holy.
And one of the best route runners in the league. Had a really good last year, wide receiver 1. But the addition of Elijah Moore cannot go unsaid because, one, this is a player that you and I absolutely adored.
Love Elijah.
Coming out.
Yep.
Gave him a first-round rookie grade coming out. His route running, his hands,
suddenness,
his speed. Dynamite.
Yep.
And what's encouraging here from a fantasy football standpoint. Now, I bought Elijah Moore for 2 seconds after he got traded to the Browns in a couple different leagues. That was the price tag. I might be willing to pay slightly more for Elijah Moore today.
Now that you've seen him in some game action and see how they're using him or the camp hype, everything. Huh?
He is the talk of the town. Mm-hmm. The Browns are using him all over the field, out of the backfield, out of the slot, out wide. They're really moving him around.
He ran basically just a running back type of player, correct?
Yeah.
Like he was straight up in the backfield as a running back.
Yeah,
yep.
Multiple plays.
Yep.
He has looked absolutely fantastic in camp. It looks like he's going to be cemented here in Cleveland for a while with Deshaun Watson, outlasting a guy like Amari Cooper here. So I think he's a fantastic buy. David Njoku, coming off a career year for him last year in the passing game, a very steady kind of that mid-range tight end, anywhere from 6 to 8. He'll probably finish right around there.
Yeah, I never feel great about David Njoku, but he always just ends up in that range of guys that are replaceable, but on the higher end of the replaceable guys.
What's encouraging with Njoku is that he's gotten better every single year. Even last year, career high in yards per game. He was about 45 yards per game, which was 8th best amongst all tight ends. And he caught, where before his hands were kind of an issue, he caught 73% of his targets last year. And amongst his target rate, actually, he was seeing about 20% of the targets as well. So for me, it's encouraging for a guy that's still really young.
Yeah. He came out super young, 20, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was 20 years old when he came in the league.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, you cut me off every time.
All right, perfect. So I didn't watch as much Browns as you last year. I only caught things that were on the Red Zone channel. I didn't watch any Browns games. Are the easy drops still a concern at all for Njoku?
He cleaned it up pretty good.
Pretty good.
I think he had
still makes the occasional. I think
two. I think off the top of my head, I only recall 2.
Okay.
And like always, he makes he literally won the Browns a game last year.
He'll make fantastic
with arguably one of the best catches in the league last year.
Oh yeah,
one-handed. So he has taken significant steps to fantasy football relevance. Like I feel really comfortable him right when you get past like that Dallas Goedert ranking range with his youth and his talent. Like there's no difference between David Njoku and Pat Freiermuth. But where David Njoku wins is the upside is how athletic he is.
He's a freak.
So
totally.
He has a chance to still kind of progress into that field, that second tier, third tier of tight end. Well, third tier is everybody. So that second tier of tight ends, like he's flirting with that range, and we'll see how it trends, how it progresses this year, because the Browns really do only have, from a focal point, 2 studs and more in Cooper. Donovan Peoples-Jones, a very solid outside receiver, had a ton of yards last year, was kind of flirting. Could he get 1,000 yards? Moore's going to cut that out. Cedric Tillman is here to replace Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yeah.
And their hope is that it would be Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, and David Njoku as their pass weapons for probably the 2025 and on years. So for me, I feel very good and comfortable with this offense from a dynasty fantasy football standpoint there. Amari Cooper's probably got 2 more years left of high-end receiving production. And at running back, Nick Chubb.
Yep.
This is a player that the Browns want to get. This is a player we can talk about here.
Might as well call him Nick Stud.
Nick Stud has an opportunity this year to finish as the number 1 running back overall.
Yes, he does.
Number 1.
I totally agree, man, because obviously he's never gotten the pass catching sort of work that he should. He's able to do it. And with Kareem Hunt on the roster the past few years, it all got pretty much funneled to him. So this year we'll actually get a chance to, I think, get a glimpse of what we've been missing out of Nick Stud.
Yeah, this is somebody who they've really kind of slow rolled Nick Chubb, right? With Kareem Hunt, just kind of, when he first came here, it was him and
I'm proud of you for nailing that name right there.
You're welcome. Who was the guy from the Houston Texans that the Browns signed?
What do you mean?
Remember, good contract, Ben Tate.
Oh, okay, yep.
And then they drafted Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb had 3 carries for 3 touchdowns and 100 yards.
Yep.
And then eventually became the guy.
Off went Ben Tate.
And then they signed Kareem Hunt. Yep. And they've really used Kareem Hunt a lot. He'd get a series every other series. He'd get all the third downs. Then he'd get a whole series. Yep. Nick Chubb, last year, they started to use a little bit more. Set career highs in carries, 302, rushing yards, 1525, and touchdowns, 13. Now with Hunt out of the picture, they have made a point here to say that they're going to use him in the passing game. And he showed that he's capable. Like, he's nothing great, but just like we saw Derrick Henry kind of uptick his receptions here. And with Chubb, without Hunt, he was averaging 20 touches per game with Hunt out of the games.
Even if he gets another 2 or 3 points a game, you're flirting with the number 1 spot. You know what I mean? He's
number 1 overall running back.
He's at almost 18 points a game. A 3-point uptick, and you're at number 2. A 4-point uptick, and you're past Austin Eckler.
It's a couple points per game.
That's it.
So literally the receiving game.
That's a couple catches a game. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. In the receiving game, if you could just get a couple catches per game, Nick Chubb is arguably the best pure runner in the game.
That guy's a treat.
His feet are special to watch.
Yeah, that dude is
like, and I know why you don't watch the Browns anymore, but he would be a reason why for somebody like the way I look at it is
I miss watching Nick Chubb.
Yeah. For somebody who I feel like will eventually come back to the Browns when you are ready to. I feel like you're really missing out on that opportunity to watch in my eyes, the greatest Browns running back I've ever seen.
I'll tell you what, those white helmets might get me.
Oh, they look good.
Oh my God, dude, they look
how big Nick Chubb is and how the way he moves his feet is special.
Yeah. And
unfortunately, if I could tell from best ball drafts and redrafts and all this, and even dynasty startups, there's no buy-in window. Like, if you want Nick Chubb, I was able to get Nick Chubb for like a first plus like a year and a half ago or so.
Where's that at now?
I would say 2 first.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think it's got to be, right? Everyone sees what we see. Everyone knows what we know about, he's going to get some sort of uptick. We don't know how much it's going to be, but anything. Like I said, it's not going to take much to boost him. It's damn near close to the top of this list. And he's already pretty high up there anyway. So, yes.
And he's got 2 to 3 years left of high-end production.
Sure.
So what a great buy.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the last team.
There's another team in the AFC North.
There is one more team. The Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, Pittsburgh Steelers.
A lot of people out there like the Steelers, Matt.
Kenny Pickett. I know. Kenny Pickett is their QB1. Obviously, Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph are the backup in the third string. We got Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. That's really all of
Hannah
note.
McFarland.
Yeah, they just signed Xavier Valade. Xavier Valade, sorry, guy from Arizona this past year. They got Pat Freiermuth at tight end, Zach Gentry, and obviously Darnell Washington, somebody that's going to be a huge red zone threat. At the wide receiver, they got Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Miles Boykins, Calvin Austin, who's been making some plays.
You can stop there.
And we'll just stop right there. Even though Hakeem Butler is on that team too.
Could be a tight end. Yeah. Calvin Austin has been making plays.
He has been. I know. I've seen some of that on Twitter. I'm pretty excited about that. He was a guy that I liked coming out last year.
This is, again, from a Dynasty fantasy football standpoint, this is a pretty solid team. And what I love about this team from a Dynasty aspect is there's a lot of assets here I like a lot, and they're all obtainable. Every one of them. I think
that's pretty fair. I think Deontay Johnson has been undervalued for years, and just keeps producing. George Pickens is probably the guy that I think would be the hardest guy to kind of
definitely probably the most expensive to get.
Yeah, just to get value on. I think it's hard because there's a lot of hype around him. He's been making some plays in camp and everything. Najee Harris might be the second hardest guy to get a hold of, but I think
2 firsts I'd pay for Najee Harris.
But I think the value's there because whatever you have to pay, you're getting solid.
Let's start there then.
Yeah, let's do it.
Najee Harris is somebody who was coming off a Lisfranc injury last year.
Yep.
So the first half of the year, we know how that works. Like, he was a little rough.
Mm-hmm.
When he came back from the Lisfranc injury over his final, let's say the 9 games he played, he was averaging 4.1 yards per carry. He had over 670 yards rushing. He was top 7 in the league in rushing yards. He is somebody the year before was running back 3 overall.
Mm-hmm.
The Pittsburgh Steelers were able to upgrade their offensive line.
Totally.
They took a tackle in the first round.
Yep.
Of the draft. When it comes to value, Najee Harris is there because this offense is going to run through Najee Harris. I expect Kenny Pickett to take a step forward. Yep. I like the receiving core. This offense will still run through Najee Harris. I think Najee Harris will be a running back 1 this year. I think he has the potential to be a top, if he can stay healthy, top 8 fantasy football running back in 2023. Viable in the passing game. Not extremely dominant. But somebody who came off a Lisfranc injury still had over 1,200 yards last year. Still the focal point. Still a first-round pick. Still has 3 more years left on his contract, essentially with the 5th-year option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's a really good
value.
That's a really good value.
Yep.
And I don't think, even though I say 2 first-round picks is what I would pay for Najee, he's the kind of running back that you can get for like a really good tight end plus or a good receiver. He's the kind of player, like if you start throwing out like the Terry McLaurins, the George Pickens, like he starts to become a little bit more obtainable. Now you have to give something on top of that.
I was going to say, you're going to have to give something pretty substantial, I think, on the top of Pickens. Don't you think?
I don't. Do you think so? I mean, Pickens is pretty hyped up right now.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking 2 firsts, right? Just off of picks. What did you think Pickens would go for as far as
a first and second?
First and second. Okay, so maybe it would be Pickens in a second.
Maybe Pickens might get it done.
Yeah.
Terry McLaurin a second for that. One of those guys that I feel like is a wide receiver 2, right around there is what he's going to cost you, like a good wide receiver 2. maybe Jahan Dotson in the first.
Yeah.
You know, some of those lines. Not for everybody. That's just, again, it's
sure.
It's hard to talk about this sometimes in that kind of.
These are all in vacuums and all sorts of stuff.
Vacuums.
Yep. It's hard.
But I think Najee Harris is that. I think he's inbound for a huge rebound year. Where George Pickens is somebody who he didn't win last year in his separation. He didn't win in his route running, but he won in his point of catch and his spectacular acrobatic catches.
And he's doing it more now. I mean, I feel like we're seeing a lot more of that this year, which probably means the confidence is building and he knows he can do it. Whereas, you know, rookies in general, they think they can do it, but they don't know that they can do it. And this year it looks like he knows that he can do it and he's doing it. So I know that there's a lot out there and you and Garrett have kind of, I think, poo-pooed him a little bit this past offseason about his inability to separate. But I'm glad that you brought it up that he's winning in other ways, because I think it's important to note that as well, especially if you're going to, you know, note that he's not separating, which maybe he's not going to ever be the greatest separator, but if he can dominate the way he's dominating at the catch point,
it's not necessary.
Yeah. And if you have a quarterback that is willing to throw it up, you're good. That's
what I was waiting for you to stop to say it. I think the most important thing here is he's developed a really good rapport with Kenny Pickett. They both come into rookie year together. Yep. He was pretty much a starter last year, George Pickens, and he has Kenny Pickett's trust. Kenny Pickett knows where he can go put the ball up for George Pickens, and he'll come down with it. And that's very important as well. We talked about Deontay Johnson. We've talked about Deontay Johnson 3 different times
in the offseason.
In this offseason so far. So I don't want to dwell on it. It's just you're talking about a premier route runner. When it comes to getting separation, getting open, Deontay Johnson's at the top of that list when it comes to stats. His number one problem is touchdowns. He is obviously going to have touchdown regression because it's literally impossible not to when you have 0. And he averages about 7 touchdowns per game. And when you put that into effect, he's a high-end wide receiver too. He's Terry McLaurin, right? Like he's DK Metcalf. He's a mid-range, like 13, 14, 15 wide receiver right around there.
And that's great.
Great value.
Yeah, absolutely. And he can be had. That's the point. I mean, you said
nobody wants him.
Nobody wants him. I mean, do you think a second would get it done?
No.
I don't think so either.
But I think like a second, I think Dalvin Cook, like so if somebody's a running back, like Dalvin Cook in a second gets it done. Yeah. And because he's still young, he's only like 26 years old.
Tight end needy team. You dangle one of these guys that has a chance, you know, I mean, I'm trying to think
same
of
team, like a Pat Freiermuth would get it done.
Yeah.
Maybe a David Njoku can get it done.
Gesicki get it done?
Definitely not get it done. Definitely ever just hurt his shoulder as well.
Not with a separated shoulder.
No, he would not get it done. But if you want to even maybe take the chance of the hype of like a Luke Musgrave, some of those. I mean, I wouldn't want to do that because I really like this tight end class a ton.
Yeah.
I just took in the Kings Classic draft, it's tight end premium. I took Sam Laporta at 10, ahead of A-Chain and Zay Flowers. And before you say anything, it's because I was really good at receiver and I was really good at running back, and I needed a tight end badly. We talked about. Remember we had the Nerds dinner. We had a big talk and voted on it, and we're like, we agree you should take Laporta.
Yep.
And I got Jonathan. You weren't there. I got Jonathan Mingo at 2.6.
Nice, dude.
Very happy about that.
Wow, that's great.
To go with Drake London, Devontae Smith, and CeeDee Lamb.
That's a solid pick, man. At 2.6. Yeah, absolutely.
So overall, I mean, I feel really good about all these Pittsburgh assets, and I'd be willing to go out there and get all of them because they're all young.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh has a history of winning, a history of putting their team in position for success. And if Matt Canada can't get it done with this offense this year, guess what? He'll be out, and they'll bring somebody that's in.
They sure will. And Deontay Johnson, how old is he? I can't remember. Is he 27?
He could be under a 27 year right now. So we saw, while you looked it up, this is somebody who had no touchdowns, and he had 147 targets, which is still unbelievable. And when you look back at the history of it, these are guys, so Deontay Johnson's average is about 7 touchdowns a year. And over the NFL history, if you see about 150 targets, you average about 7 touchdowns.
He is 27 years old.
So with that kind of regression, you're talking, give him 5 more touchdowns, and he's a wide receiver too. That's it.
Absolutely, man. And at 27 years old, he's entering his prime basically right now, which is fantastic.
So 3 years of Deontay Johnson for a first.
Yep.
That's great value right there. That was a lot.
Yeah.
Expo, AFC North, advertising. Check out our partners, FFPC and Underdog. We'll be back next week talking West.
The West.
Did I mess it up?
I've already got all those notes.
Also, next week, remember, we on Wednesday, on Thursday, we're going to do a show for the troops. We've been invited by the Colonel, Chris Meeker. We were going down Wednesday, and on Thursday, around noon in Dayton, Ohio, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, we are going to have the privilege next week to speak to the troops. We'll talk about it again on next show, Tuesday. So we are going to try and record that show, if possible, put it out as a redraft show for the podcast. If not, we'll just do the redraft show, get some pictures. We don't know if we're going to be able to get video or whatnot, but anything we can get, we'll put all over social media and hope we get that out for a show. I'm really, really excited for that show. Can't wait to see the troops. Can't wait to give them the best fantasy advice that they've ever gotten.
Me also.
Forget Uncle Sam. It's Uncle Rich is coming to town.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
See you next week.
Adios.